Hello, everybody. Anna Sabramowicz here. Thank you so much for joining me today. I have a fabulous person with me today, Allyson Scott. She is a part of our interactive storytelling accelerator community and kind of recently launched her own interactive story for her workplace. So we're going to get into that today, her experience and maybe some of the lessons learned and some of the things that she wants to maybe pass along to anybody else considering the program. Allyson, thank you so much for being here. This is awesome.
Yeah, thanks. This is exciting.
All right. So first off, before joining the community, tell us a little bit about what you're doing and your place at work and how you got to this point.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm working at a healthcare organization I've been at for about 10 years now. So I guess about 9 years whenever I stumbled across you. And in my role, I work as a consultant in learning and development, and I support the organization, which is pretty large, about 30,000 people. But in my role, yeah, it's a pretty large organization. But in my role, I primarily support the revenue cycle management group, which is a grouping of just under 2,000 people now make up that area. So I support that team and any kind of project initiatives, learning, eLearning. And most recently, we helped put together a quality and training team specifically for RCM. So I help support that team of trainers and quality professionals, and that's been really fun. So we do new employee training, but then also projects, anything they throw at me.
Yeah, that's super fun. So what made you, so eLearning, like it sounds like it's a gamut, right? Like you're basically like, what do we need to do? And it sounds like you're like, okay, let's figure out a way to do it well. Right. And
right. Yeah. It could be classroom training, virtual e-learning, or maybe just on the job resources. So I'll support in all of those areas.
Wow. That's awesome. So then how did you, what made you decide to go and look into interactive storytelling?
So, well, last year before I joined the interactive storytelling group, I was kind of in a hard place because I really was experiencing a lot of burnout. That was related to many different things, not just my job. But that certainly, contributed a little bit to that. There was life issues, I'm sure a little bit of COVID fatigue in there. For sure. And then in work, I found myself just really involved in a lot of administrative tasks, especially with supporting this new quality and training team and just a lot of the, LMS things and helping to get trainers up on that and this new employee training program. So I just found myself being really inundated with a lot of administrative tasks, which don't really energize me. And so I was just experiencing this burnout, but then this project came along that seemed pretty important, and it was impacting the payments we were receiving and also patient bills. And so this was an important project, and I knew I needed to do something different. And I was really energized at the idea of getting to kind of jump into something like a really thought out instructional design project. And I knew it needed to be different than, a content dump of information. So the more I was learning about it. And so I was researching online, just always, trying to get ideas. And I think I came across your videos on YouTube probably, or somewhere. I somehow found your videos. I don't remember how. And I watched your video where you explain this interactive storytelling and your experience with your first kind of that big interactive story you had put out. And I was like really inspired. I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I'm looking for. This is what I think I can do with this project. I just thought it was really neat. And so I think I scheduled a call with you then and learned a little bit more about it. And, I knew it wasn't something I could necessarily finance on my own at the time. So what I did is I just went to my boss and I asked, hey, would you want to support something like this? I think it could be really cool for my project. And to my surprise, they said yes. Well, they did make me create some kind of S-bar first. And so I did like an S-bar, here's why this would be a really great idea. And here's what I can do for your team. And I bring back all these really cool ideas. So that's the one thing I had to promise is just to bring back all this cool info for our team.
That's really awesome that you did that. And I know from experience and the way you've been jumping on coaching calls and the questions you've been asking in the community that you've done that and more for your team.
Yes, I hope so. So
Yeah.
Still kind of getting that information out.
Yeah, always. Like it's never like, it's everybody knows, but that's fantastic. No, I know that you've been working hard to implement all kinds of optimizations. And it's interesting, I think, because I remember us talking, and I remember you saying, I want to, like you wanted to move more into the areas that were going to energize you and help you be more of a creator. I guess. Is that, but the admin was draining you. So was it something that you felt like you actively had to negotiate for? Like, is it just something that kind of slipped into your role, that all this admin stuff, and then you just kind of had to like talk a little bit about that? I think a lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah. And that's something I struggled with because, people end up leaning on you sometimes for things that they don't know how to do, or that we just don't have a role for yet. And that's kind of what happened with me. And so I could do it. I was, competent in doing it. And so, I end up doing most of it. And so learning how to manage that work and help train other people to do it and kind of help set those expectations was something I've been working on and still working on today. But yeah, I think it's been a process of that, and just talking with leaders of that team and my leader around the best use of my time, and kind of understanding that, if I'm doing all of this, it really eats up a lot of the time I could be spending on, these other projects.
Mm-hmm. So as far as, because it's a different kind of feeling, right? When you're creating, I think. So
Yes.
Tell me, okay, before we even get into that, which is going to be cool, because your project is awesome. How did you feel like when you first joined? And I know, obviously you made this case, but after our conversation about all the things you're going to do and all the things you're hoping to achieve and get out of the program. But tell me, when you first joined, how did you feel? Did you feel skeptical, scared, freaked out? Tell me the truth.
Well, I was super excited to just soak up all this information because it was just so interesting, just the storytelling aspects alone. I just wanted to know more. So I was really excited to soak it up. But at the same time, I was nervous. And, it was a little intimidating because, it's a group of professionals who are already doing this work. So I felt a little bit of that intimidation at first. And as I started, learning a little bit about the storytelling, I did start to doubt that I could pull this off with my project. Because it is kind of software based, and there was a lot of software steps that were creeping in, and it was just hard for me to see the vision from the beginning. So I did struggle with that a little bit, but then something came back to me during that time, which is something I heard from my professor when I got my instructional technology degree, and it will never leave me. And it's trust the process. So that's what I tried to do during that part, because it was so messy. I couldn't really see what was going on. And I think, Anna, you even spoke to it, around how you just have to do it. You just start doing it and it will start making sense. And in the end, you'll have something sound. At first, it might be just really messy and you might not see it all the way. But as I kept working on it and getting feedback from you and the other team members of the group, it started to come together. And that's when it really got exciting, when I started to see how this could really work and how I can create really specific decision points. And that's really when it clicked, I think. So that was really exciting. But at first it was I felt a little nervous about it, I guess.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And I think a lot of us struggle with that. This isn't a soft skills piece. So how am I going to do that? But then you realize that, and I want you to talk about your interactive story for us. Like give us the details of if you were going to describe it, which you are right now.
Okay.
Tell us about that interactive story and how you married basically people and software in a story.
Yeah. So really what it's a story about is you're helping a fellow team member, which is a patient service rep in a medical office. And you're helping them make decisions when they're checking in their patients. And the decisions are all around what we call real-time eligibility for insurance, which they have to do in their software system. And so what we found is people just weren't doing it correctly. They weren't reading it and just kind of bypassing it. And so we put really specific decisions in there around if they're going to read it and then what they're going to do based on if they read it. So that's kind of what the story is about. And so you're helping this team member make those decisions. And, by the end, you're going to get the outcome. And either it's going to impact the patients and the company negatively, or you're going to have good outcomes.
Fabulous. And okay, so I remember you working through, and you mentioned you were like skeptical because, or you doubted yourself too, because I remember you burning through the content and you were like rearing to go, right? I was like, okay, slow down. Let's do this one step at a time.
It's moving real fast.
And then what was really cool is you're right. When you hit that stride, you got your decisions down. Then I believe in like a week, you turned around and you had like a working prototype built out and beyond. we were like, what? Just right. It was awesome.
Yes.
But talk to me about that. I think one of the things that you did very well is, how discovering those decisions and then also adding the context with some of the situational pressure around making those decisions. Because anybody, Allyson, you could say, Allyson, there's a process for this. Why don't they just follow the step-by-step checklist and it's like very intuitive? Why do you even need to make an interactive story for this?
Oh, I guess that's a good point. So it became clear that it really didn't need a how-to, a step-by-step how-to. And what we ended up deciding the goal should be is really an attitude behavior change around these RTEs to help the employees really appreciate why we need to do the RTEs and how that impacts, the company and the patients. And so that's really what it became. It wasn't necessarily a how-to, and it really couldn't have been a how-to. The more we learn about this real-time eligibility is that there are 5 million different ways an eligibility could come back. I'm pretty sure that's almost an exact number, but there's so many different ways because there are so many different insurances and they all have different rules. It's just crazy. So you can never do the same thing for each response. They're all going to be so different. And we don't want them to memorize it because it changes all the time. Also, insurance companies will change things just all the time. So it's always moving. So we really need them to really rely on their on-the-job resources. So when they're not sure what to do when they're reading that response, they can pull that resource, which is kept up to date, and reference that for what might need to be done. So we're really driving them to these on-the-job resources and really want them to use those rather than kind of memorize, here's what to do every time. Now, there are some main things they need to do, like run eligibility and then open it and read it like every time. So we did include that as some decision pieces in the module. But the main goal was really to help them appreciate, why this is so important and then hopefully motivate them to really pay a lot more attention to it and start using those resources when they need to.
Do you think it was because, and I think most people don't understand this, is that most people don't understand the concept of how their decisions affect things like third?
Oh, yeah.
Like talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that was another layer to it is that we discovered a lot of people just didn't know what the impacts were. And so if they didn't read a response or maybe they're in a rush, because that is one of the challenges that we tried to put into the context of each scenario is that we really need to make these efficient for our patients. We don't want to sit there forever. They're in a hurry. So that is an issue. But what was I saying there with that? So
the consequences.
Yeah. consequences. So yeah, so then they'll see that, by the end, if they don't do that and they just bypass it, like sometimes they'll do because they're in a hurry. The assumption was for many people is that someone's going to take care of it, sometime later after the fact. And they weren't really understanding that, oh, that's actually something that goes to my team's work queue. And now I have team members who are having to do rework on these. And that is impacting the work that we're all getting done. So it was building that into the consequences to show that there's rework that has to be done, but not only that, that patients' bills were getting impacted, so that if we didn't have those responses read correctly and adjusted, then patients could be billed for higher costs than they were expecting. And so we had that play out in some of the consequences too.
Yeah, that was fun. I mean, I know that I shouldn't say it's fun, but it's pretty fun because you basically brought all the terrible things that could happen. Not terrible, but just like all the pressures. And you did it. What I love is the visual way that you made everything.
Beyond, yeah. I think was really helpful for that, and at first I didn't know I was going to use Beyond. I was kind of open to using some other assets and I was kind of in a time crunch, so I didn't think that I had the time to really reach out to an illustrator and do all of that. And I'm pretty competent with Beyond. I've been using it for a while, as you saw. So, yeah. I could whip out some scenes. As long as I know what I'm going for, I can create it there. And it just seemed to be a lot more manageable for creating the scenes that we needed, like with the medical office and things like that. Yeah,
no, you did that beautifully. That was so fun. And you moved so quickly on that. That was the best. Yeah. It's quickly tested on us and it was great. So, awesome. Okay. So like, as far as now getting back to the coaching and the program itself, what surprised you about it?
I was expecting it to be great, but it was better than what I expected, to be honest. Okay. I knew that I was going to get, you talked about, those coaching calls and getting feedback there, but I wasn't necessarily expecting so much feedback and input from the community. And so I think that was a little surprising, just how supportive and interactive the community is together. Just getting so many different kinds of feedback from people is so valuable. So I found that really, really cool. So that was a big surprise. And then, just the coaching calls were great. I love joining those calls because there's always something interesting to learn, just from other people's questions and then seeing, their projects and everything they're working on. So yeah, I think that was a surprise.
Cool. So as far as just working on this project, what do you think, like professionally, like, what was your biggest maybe win or aha or takeaway that you feel you got from it?
So I think that it's really helped me start seeing myself personally a little differently as I think you call it, we're creative directors. I think you referenced that a lot. So being able to start see myself in that way, I think has been helpful. Something that I might have shied away from before, even though I'm so interested in bringing in creativity into these projects. It seemed a little daunting to call myself creative, director. I don't know why. But so that's kind of helped shift my mindset a little bit. So that's been really great. But also going back to the community, one thing that I guess another surprise I didn't mention is just how much I realized I really enjoy being in a community of people who are interested in this topic of storytelling, instructional design, and just so ready to provide information, feedback, critique. It felt kind of like I felt when I was in my instructional technology program and with our, the other students. It was just so, so encouraging and inspiring to just be in a group of people who are all just sharing ideas and just that critiquing and feedback is so good. So I think I realized how much I enjoyed being a part of just a community like that. And I think that was also really helpful and has been rejuvenating, for me. So, when I started and I was looking for something to inspire me and kind of help me through this phasing out of burnout, I think it did help do that.
Awesome. Fabulous. Oh, that's good to hear. So, and I mean, you show up and you ask some awesome questions. So it's not like you're no slouch. You're no slouch in that department. But the other thing I think is really important to note is that you, I mean, every time you show up with a prototype and you're sharing that in our community, you are getting critique, right? So tell me, how is that? How does that feel because it's not like you're getting pats on the back for sure, but you're also getting like, you fix this, or this isn't working.
This could be better. Or
so how does that, how do you work through that? Like, I know a lot of people struggle through that, with that. How has that helped, or has it?
It has helped. And I actually really love it. I know that it can be a struggle sometimes, especially when you feel like people aren't understanding what you're trying to do. And if that's the case, then I know I just need to communicate that better, or maybe try to, well, here's actually what I'm trying to do. But I just really appreciate the critiquing and the feedback and the other new ideas, honestly, because I like to think about things differently and just kind of challenge myself with different ways of seeing things. And then you can and what's great about it is in the community, they're always just throwing out ideas. And it's not saying that yours is bad or that what you did is bad, but I don't know. I just find it really helpful. I feel like it's hard to get really good feedback. It's hard to get thoughtful critiquing. I don't think it's easy, necessarily. And so it's just really, I appreciate it, I guess, when I can get it. So definitely I value it. I don't think I struggle too much with it, at least where I'm at now. So.
Awesome. So you mean like, as in you're ready for it? Like, that's something that
I'm ready.
Out.
Yeah. You never know. And you don't ever have to take someone's feedback, right? It's always it's helpful to consider and kind of maybe open your mind to new ways of doing things, but you can take it or leave it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. So, okay. So let's say somebody's just joining the program. What advice would you give them?
Well, I would say, coming from me, you want to jump in and soak it all up in whatever way you soak things up in. For me, I was moving really fast. I just, I had a timeline, but I also was just really eager to understand things. So I was going through that masterclass a lot, but taking notes, was helpful for me. So I know mind maps, notes, whatever is helpful for you, but for me, it just helps me remember. So I love taking notes with that masterclass and just going back and referencing them, and then running through it again. So that I would say is great, but also being active in the community, I think, is huge. And the more active you are, I think you might get more out of it. So if and a thing that I think also helped me is that I was ready to just jump in and start with a story. So I just, hit the ground running. And I was able to really engage and start interacting right away. So I think that was helpful, just doing it. And I think that's something you said, like, it's, you just have to do it. Right. So even back when I was kind of struggling and I don't know if this is going to happen, right. Just do it, just start the process. And then, it's going to start coming together. But I think that's what I would say is get engaged in the community. They're a great bunch of people, that love to give great feedback and are really supportive too. So yeah, that's what I would say. Jump in, start creating as soon as you can, just so you can get that practice in and get that feedback. Yeah.
And get started with the next story.
Yeah. Yes. That's my next thing I got to do.
Awesome. Okay. So where can people go to connect with you and maybe learn more about the next project you're going to be up to?
Oh, sure. LinkedIn is a great place to go. So yeah, I'd love for you to connect with me on LinkedIn. That'd be great.
Fabulous. And I'll put the link so you can just click underneath the video and connect with Allyson and ask her any more questions or learn about her next upcoming project. No pressure. All right. Allyson, thank you so much for spending your time with us and doing this with me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much.